What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back, and Ethan's finally back joining us here after his long hiatus since our football videos. We're diving back into baseball here, and what better way to kick it off than a contender video? We're going to rank all of the teams and see where we think they are before the season starts, from World Series rankings to rebuilding. And let's jump right into it here. And we'll start it off with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'll let you go first here, Ethan. Do you have anything to report here on the Diamondbacks?
Well, I think they're going to be on the rebuild side, especially the division keeps getting better. So I don't see them going anywhere. I can't see them being around a 500 team just because of their division. I mean, they did re-sign Ketel Marte, which is big for them. He could have a big season. They got some prospects, but they're not here yet. So I'm saying rebuild.
And I think a name to watch is Dalton Varsho, their first baseman. He could be the next Paul Goldschmidt for that franchise, give him some solid years and put up production. If you're fantasy baseball, he could be a good sleeper pick for you this year. But
in a 12-team league, that'd be a big pick.
And we're going to go with the Braves here. I think they're in between the playoff hopeful and playoff teams, but due to respect from last year, we got to put them at playoff teams because I know that Freddie Freeman's gone, but they still brought in Matt Olson. Jock Peterson's gone. So they brought back Eddie Rosario. And don't forget that they didn't have Acuna the whole second half of the year, that playoff run. And he's coming back, they said, around beginning of May. And obviously adding a top 10 player in the league back into your lineup is a huge piece. And I think what is really going to have to take them over the top this year is the starting pitching, because we saw last year, hitting kind of carried them to the postseason, and then the pitching really took over. And I think that's kind of what's going to have to do them in a very good NL East this year, with the Phillies getting better. That division is up for grabs.
And next we got the Baltimore Orioles. Sorry, Orioles fans, but I'm going to keep you in the rebuild section. Now, Adley Rutschman, the former number one prospect in baseball, I know he's number 2 now, but I know, and he's also hurt. He's not planning on being up right now, but they should get him at some point. So be excited for that. Cedric Mullins should have another big year. They got some guys on the roster, but they're still rebuilding. They're just not there yet in a competitive AL East.
And speaking of the AL East, we got the Boston Red Sox. I think this team is being slept on very heavily in the AL East because, they still have the Yankees. Obviously, everyone's loving the Yankees. The hype around the Blue Jays is real this year. But don't forget about the Red Sox. They're making moves. Bringing in Trevor Story is a very good move.
Very good move.
That infield is insane. Bobby Dalbec is probably the weakest part in that infield, but he could have a breakout year this year. Last year he struggled a bit, but I think he's going to be the key to that success in the lower end of the lineup there. And starting pitching is the big question. After losing Eduardo Rodriguez to the Tigers, who is going to step up and fill that role? The pitching is really what's going to determine how good the Red Sox can be this year. But for their sake, I think they are a playoff team just because of what they saw last year. They were a rebuilding team, not really trying to win a World Series, but they made it to the American League Championship. And, you got to give them credit where credit's due.
Yep. And next we got the Chicago Cubs. And I'm kind of torn on what to do here. They are rebuilding, but I think they're going to be around a 500 team. I know you're a little kind of a Cubs guy.
I mean, they did lose Bryant and Rizzo and Baez, but they still brought in some good guys. They brought in Suzuki. He's going to be potentially the next hitting Ohtani. He's been putting up great numbers. I'll just let you talk about your White Sox, obviously. So he's been putting up great numbers. Kyle Hendricks is the ace. That's a big question. Pitching, we're going to have to see what they're going to do there. But I think from a hitting standpoint, it's going to come down to Patrick Wisdom and Frank Schwindel, some journeymen. If they can put up some consistent numbers like they did last year, then I think this team will be around 500. I don't think they'll be a playoff hopeful even. They'll contend, they'll beat some good teams, lose to some bad teams just like everybody else. But I just think when it comes down to the last month, I think they're going to be too far out of it.
And now we get to talk about my Chicago White Sox. And I would love to put them as a World Series favorite. but I'm gonna keep them as a playoff team. They should win the AL Central. I mean, they definitely have a top three bullpen in all of baseball, and when it comes down to it, in September and October, that's what you need, and you need pitching. And I mean, they got all the guys in their lineup too. I'd say they could be a World Series favorite at the end of the year. So don't be surprised if that happens.
And here we have the Cincinnati Reds, and I think they're going to be in around a 500 team as well. That NL Central is kind of going to be around 500 besides the Brewers. I think they should win that division pretty easily. But you do have to have some hope because Hunter Green is getting called up, and he is starting for the Reds this year right off the gate. So that's a positive sign. You know, their best prospect is coming up, and he could potentially win Rookie of the Year. You know, he is very highly, anticipated debut, and everyone's just excited to see what he can do this year in the majors. He's going to be the big story for the Reds. As they had some guys walk in free agency, which is always tough, but they're going to have some new guys step in and fill those roles. And I just think, once again, that NL Central is just going to be beating each other up, where I don't think there's going to be two teams that'll make the playoffs.
Next, we got the other Ohio team, the Cleveland Guardians. I think because of this division, I'm gonna put them in a rebuild. They're not as bad as the Diamondbacks or Orioles, but they got guys. It's just that very competitive division. They haven't really been bringing anybody in, few guys, and I think they'll be around. They just won't be in the mix come September.
We got to put the Rockies in the rebuild. That's kind of a no-brainer.
What are they doing?
Letting Trevor Story walk and then bringing in Chris Bryant for an insane amount of money. Their GM has no clue what he's doing. I think they just want to put a product on the field where they can have a star so people will come out. I just don't know what's going on. They're in the NL West. Don't forget that. With the Padres, potentially the Dodgers with the best lineup I've ever seen assembled in baseball.
Yep.
And then you still have other teams like the Giants, who were really good last year. And then obviously we have the other team that we don't need to talk about, but we already talked about them. So we got the Rockies, not really much going on there. Colorado is probably going to be very bad, probably maximum 60 wins along with the Diamondbacks in that division. So you're going to have
be two teams with 100 wins and two teams.
Yep, that's just what happens when you play each other at least 20 times a season. But I'll continue on here and talk about my Tigers.
Yep.
They are a playoff hopeful. Definitely, I would say the sleeper team to make the playoffs, not because of my bias, just because of how many young prospects they have coming up. Spencer Torkelson probably going to be the starting first baseman day one. Riley Green, starting outfielder. And those are two of their top 5 prospects, very young guys, lots of promise. And I think the oldest guy on the team is Miggy at 36, 37. And after that, I think it's like 30. So this is a very young team with lots of promise. The rotation is going to be the key. They did sign Eduardo Rodriguez. Matt Manning had a very bad year last year. But those two guys are going to be how good they're going to be. You got Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize. They've been really good so far. And who's going to fill in that 5th slot? Michael Pineda. He is going to be the key factor. He's been a very consistent MLB guy, kind of been different teams here and there throughout those last few years. But let's see if the journeyman can really contribute for the Tigers this year.
And as a White Sox fan, I'm agreeing with your take there because you've been talking about it all throughout last season, talking about they can be a playoff hopeful. And once they get their guys up, they do have the best prospects in the MLB right now, without a doubt. They come up and play, all those guys. They're a really young sleeper team that could make the playoffs. But next, we got the Houston Astros. I'm going to say they're a playoff team. Pretty obvious here. They did get rid of Correa, but, they're still loaded. That lineup is top 3 in baseball without Correa. So be scared of the Astros. Verlander's coming back healthy. I think he's going to have a great year. So write that down, man. Astros are back. The Astros are back.
And the Royals are still at the bottom. No royalty there in Kansas City. Salvador Perez is probably going to be a beast yet again. Bobby Witt Jr., whenever he gets called up, I'm not 100% sure if he's there opening day or not, but he'll be there pretty close. And I think he and Salvi are going to carry this team to probably around 60 wins, which is pretty bad. But they did get Zach Greinke back. He could, have a really good year, and they could trade him off for some valuable pieces in the middle of the year. But the Royals, they won't be making too much noise in the AL Central.
And next, we got a very interesting team, the Los Angeles Angels. Rendon's back and healthy, so I'm gonna say they're a playoff hopeful because they're kind of in that middle team where they could be like, if they get injuries, Trout goes down, they're gonna be just like last year, around 500, maybe even rebuild. But that lineup is scary with Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, Jared Walsh. That is a stacked team. And they just need to figure out that pitching staff a little bit more. They did get Noah Syndergaard, so that's a big acquisition. So they could make the playoffs. It's going to be a very interesting AL West.
And here we have the Dodgers. Obviously, they're a World Series favorite. Bringing in Freddie Freeman to an already loaded team just speaks volumes at how good this Dodgers team is going to be this year. They did lose Kenley to the Braves. Yeah. But at the end of the day, does it even matter? Because their bullpen was already stacked, and it's just the next man up mentality there in LA. Nothing really new to report because we already know that they've been a World Series favorite. I think what they're looking forward to this year is a bounce back year on Cody Bellinger. He struggled heavily last year until the playoffs, and if he can really get it going, I mean 1 through 9 because the DH rule now. They're going to be a hitting team with guys hitting probably consistent 270, 280 plus because they have one of the best catchers in the league as well in Will Smith. But this Dodgers team, on paper, they probably should win 110, even more games. But obviously, you never know. It's baseball. You still got to go out there and play your best every game. But they definitely are the World Series favorites.
Yep, and next we got the Miami Marlins. I'm gonna say they're around 500 this year. They not a lot of name guys on their roster, but they are solid all around. And it's a tough division, but I think they can beat a lot of those good teams, especially with their rotation being like the young, just absolute dog pitchers that they have. Pablo Lopez, Sandy Alcantara. Who am I missing? There's a few more guys that are just pretty solid. I can't.
Trevor Rogers.
Trevor Rogers,
Sandy Alcantara.
Yep, I already named him. But yeah, that roster, that starting rotation is solid, and that can win them a few games, 20 games this year, just by that.
Here we have the Brewers, and I'm putting them as a World Series favorite because, one, their pitching staff, starting and relief, top tier, both top 5 in the league. And when you have your best player last year not play his best, probably career year ever in Christian Yelich, he's poised for a bounce back year. And I think he's going to do some big things this year in a very weak pitching division in the NL Central. So expect the Brewers to win at least 90 games, potentially around 100 games in that NL Central. And that's why I think, out of respect to them, they've had really good years. But when it comes down to it, they're going to have to win a playoff series. And sooner or later, if they don't win one, their head coach or manager would be gone. And they're going to have to split up the team, bring in some new pieces. But this is the year that I think that they've really got it all together.
And next we got the New York Mets. I'm going to say they're a playoff team because how can they not be a playoff team when they just acquired Max Scherzer? They got the best starting rotation in baseball when healthy. They're just filthy all around. Lindor is going to have a much better season. He's looking to bounce back. And I just think it's either going to be them or Philly winning this division this year. And I think I'm going to say the Mets for right now.
Here we got the Yankees. And right now they're sitting at a playoff team because when you have Joey Gallo, Giancarlo Stanton, and Aaron Judge in your outfield, no one's going to want to run on you. And that's a tough 2-3-4 you got to pitch against if it's all in the same inning. So for just on that case, I'm not talking about anything else. This team on paper, yet again, is a playoff team. In that stacked AL East, I know that they're going to face the Red Sox and the Blue Jays with some very good teams. but I think the Yankees are going to squeak in the playoffs as of right now. And if they do, you better watch out because with this new playoff seeding, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5.
Yep.
It's going to be very interesting to see how things shake up this year.
And next we got the Oakland A's, and they are in full rebuild mode, my friends. I mean, they just got rid of their whole team this offseason. Matt Olson's gone. Mark Canha's gone. Starling Marte's gone. Everyone's gone, basically. So they are obviously in rebuild mode. They did get some pieces back in those trades and free agency and all that. But right now, I just, the way the Oakland A's play baseball is that cheap. They're going to be competitive. They've been competitive all these last few years, but you got to have players in that AL West, and I just don't think they have the players right now.
Here we got the Philadelphia Phillies. I think they're a playoff team, but before, I'm gonna help you out here. I'm gonna move those White Sox up to a World Series favorite because in the AL, I mean that's a not really crowded AL, but they're gonna have to do it sometime. And this is gonna be the year for them. But back to the Phillies. We are going to put them at playoff team, adding Nick Castellanos, getting Bryce Harper some help is a huge move.
Huge.
It's going to be underrated because, no one really talks about Nick Castellanos as a top tier player. He provides it every year, day in and day out. He's a great player. But the rotation is going to be key for the Phillies if they really want to make that playoff push and, win the division as well. But we're going to have to see. It's going to be a great race this year. It's going to be just as competitive as last year, but probably those teams are going to have more wins than last year. And it's going to shake down, I would say, probably till the last week of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And here we get to go talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates, which no one ever wants to talk about. They're in the rebuild because they just don't have any players. Brian Reynolds is a superstar, but I did say a superstar, by the way. He's been hitting like a superstar. But other than that, O'Neal Cruz most likely not going to be on the opening day roster because he needs to work on his outfield defense. Doesn't even play outfield. He's a shortstop. So if he comes up and plays, he's going to be a dog. Watch out for him. But not a lot else to talk about with the Pirates. They traded away their whole prospects to get Chris Archer a few years back, and that just didn't work out. Ever since, it's been bad.
San Diego Padres, I'm putting them as a playoff hopeful just because of what we saw last year in that crowded NL West. And with Tatis being hurt, who knows when he's going to get back? I know it was, 6 to 10 weeks since he got hurt. And that's looking at middle of May, early June, around that time. And in that crowded NL West, with the Giants being good, LA being good, someone's going to have to falter like they did last year. And right now, you got to put the Padres here just because they did it last year. And I think just, it's going to come down to if they can stay healthy. And, it's going to be the same story over again. Is Slam Diego really going to be the team that everyone thinks they're going to be?
Next, we got a very interesting team in the AL West once again. I'm going to say they're a playoff hopeful. They made some great acquisitions. I think Jesse Winker was huge. That outfield's going to be loaded, especially if Jared Kelenic turns out to be what he's supposed to be, and J-Rod should be coming up soon as well. So the Mariners are looking scary. They could be a playoff team. Just depends on how that season shakes out. I'm not sure, but they're definitely going to be a playoff hopeful this season.
And the Giants are also going to fit in that category. They did lose Chris Bryant after getting him at the trade deadline, and Kevin Gausman lost him as well. And after that, this team is kind of staying in place. Nothing really too big moving over there, but Brandon Crawford is all reliable. And Brandon Belt, don't forget about Brandon Belt as well. Quietly a top 100 player, just got ranked by MLB. And this team, they're a very consistent team. They're well coached, and they do the little things right. And that's what wins them games, doing those little things right. And the Giants, I don't know if they're going to have a big of a year as they did last year, but they're definitely in that playoff hopeful category.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And next we got the St. Louis Cardinals, and I'm going to put them as a playoff hopeful. And it's not because the roster is stacked or anything like that. They are getting better, but if you look at the rest of the teams in that NL Central, we got the Pirates down in the rebuild, and then we got the Reds and the Cubs around 500. And I think the Cardinals are going to be slightly better than all three of those teams. And I think they're going to fit right in and be there till the end in that NL wild card race.
Tampa Bay, we got to put them as a playoff team in that very crowded AL East, as I've said before. Starting pitching, Shane McClanahan is going to be a key guy. He made some starts last year, but we're going to see if he can really put it together this year and be that guy. Tyler Glasnow, he's going to be back this year at some point, recovering from his Tommy John. Let's see if he can, keep up his stuff. But we're going to really have to determine how good this team is going to be with starting pitching, which is very weird because normally they're always the team that has the best bullpen, has the best starting pitching, and then the hitting is so-so, but they still get it done. But that's not the case this year. They lost Nelson Cruz in free agency, but Wander Franco, I mean, you don't need to talk about that guy. Everyone just knows how good he is. When you can get on base, what was it, like over 40 times in a row?
Insane streak. He broke like the rookie record or something last year.
Some insane streak. I mean, he's got good things coming for him in his career. So Tampa is definitely a playoff team.
Next, we got the Texas Rangers, and this is a tough one. I'm gonna say around 500. I can agree with that. It's just they got so many big pieces in that that infield, middle infield, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, but you can't just especially in Texas where it's kind of a pitcher's ballpark. I think that'll kind of mess up them a little bit. They're still going to be going off. It's just that division's so nasty. And I think they're going to be the third or fourth best team even in the division. So got to keep them around 500.
And I'm going to put the Twins there as well. I don't know why there's too much hype around this Minnesota team because name one starting pitcher they have right now that is healthy. You can't. Their pitching is very questionable this year on both starting and relief pitching. And bringing in Correa, I think, just made everyone forget that they don't have any pitching. Kenta Maeda is the ace, and he's out, and nobody knows when he's going to be back.
Maeda's a low-end ace, too.
Mm-hmm. And, I think Correa is a one-done on the Twins. He can opt out after this year. I think he just signed a big contract just to get his money this year and kind of go into it again next year. But that's why I got to put the Twins here around 500. I think the Tigers going to be a little better than them. Bias there, 100%. And the White Sox are obviously going to be better than the Tigers and Twins. So the Twins are going to struggle, I think, this year in the AL Central.
And here we go. We can talk about the Blue Jays. We've hinted about them the whole video almost, and now we're finally here. And they could be up there with the World Series favorites, but I'm going to keep them as a playoff team because it's actually, hold on a second. Let's put them as a World Series favorite just for the memes. I think they have the upside to do it. I mean, their lineup is probably the best lineup in baseball outside of the Dodgers. They just got studs everywhere. And, Vlad Jr. said that last year was the trailer and this year's the movie. So be careful with that guy because you don't want to be in the way of that dude. He's insane. So World Series favorite. They got the pitchers too. Lots of acquisitions this offseason, and it's gonna be a very good year for the Blue Jays.
And lastly, we got the Washington Nationals, and I think they're a 500 team. With Juan Soto, obviously top 2 hitter in baseball, and he's not 2. Yep. You got some games to win right there. His WAR, I think, was around 7 last year. And, that's a stat that when he's not playing, obviously this team just immediately tanks. And if he can stay healthy, play all 162, this team is going to stay around 500. Maybe they make some moves around the deadline, depending on what their record is then. But the pitching is, once again, the big question mark. Patrick Corbin, former ace, he struggled mightily last year. He can have a bounce back year. That'd be great. Steven Strasburg, he's always has injuries concerns. He stays healthy. They could be a solid team. In all honesty, it's a team that everyone's probably overlooking in that very crowded NL East. Don't be too surprised if the Nationals squeak up there at the end of the year.
And that'll do it for today's video. Everyone's happy that baseball's back, so we're going to keep bringing you videos. This is going to be a very, very fun season for me and Zach both, and we're excited to just talk about it here. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you like the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Until next time, Bench buddies are out.
She never called back.